The 2024-25 season has been flat out awesome so far, and there have been a ton of bright spots, but perhaps one of the biggest and most encouraging has been the play of star guard Darius Kinnard Garland, a player coming off an admittedly down season by the standards he himself had set through his play. He has begun the season reminding folks just how talented he is, and I'm here for it. With that being said, here are 5 telling stats that paint a picture of just how impactful Garland has been so far. Number 1, 7.3. It should bear mention that Darius Garland is attempting the most triples per game of his career at 7.3 trays nightly. His current career high over the course of a full season is 6.7, which came back during the fabled 2021-22 season that saw the talented point guard make his first official All-Star game appearance. He had the ball in his hands a ton, and the majority of his attempts were pull-ups. 3.8 to be exact, nearly the inverse of what we are seeing from him this season. He is knocking down a blisteringly high amount of these looks, currently sitting on a 3-point percentage of 44.8%. Now think about this, there are currently 39 players league-wide averaging at least 7 triples per game, and among those players, only 5 have higher overall percentages. Buddy Hield at 50%, Zach LaVine at 45.8%, Jordan Poole with 45.3%, and Anthony Edwards and Norman Powell, who are each sitting at 45%. Now I feel it important to mention that through his first 8 appearances last season, he was only throwing up 4.6 3-point attempts and making a highly ineffective and inefficient 32.4%. He was flat out struggling to knock down the triple and was becoming less and less of a weapon for him. And while he did manage to round out the 2023-24 campaign with over 6.2 per contest and rebounded nicely in terms of percentage at 37.1%, that year was filled to the brim with inconsistent shot making and marred by absence due to injury. This appeared to sap him of his confidence at times. So far this year, DG seems to have regained that confidence and then some. This may not be the 9 to 10 attempts per game that head coach Kenny Atkinson was alluding to in the offseason, but it is certainly a step in the right direction for a player who I have always felt could be a devastating shot maker with increased volume. Good on him for following through. Number 2, 46.7%. Ever since the hiring of head coach Kenny Atkinson, one of the most consistent themes throughout the offseason that we heard was that the team wanted to get both members of their starting backcourt more off-ball opportunities. And so far, this has at least been the case for Darius Garland. DG is attempting roughly 3.8 attempts per game of this regard. That's pretty solid volume, and it's actually more than the amount of pull-up triples he is currently attempting. And what's even more impressive about this is that he is completing 46.7% of his catch and shooter triples so far this year. Only 2 Cavs are averaging more attempts, that being Dean Wade and Sam Merrill, both of which take almost exclusively catch and shoot attempts. His 1.8 makes in that regard ranks second to only Merrill on the team. Garland playing more off-ball can be a great thing for the Cavaliers as he is easily one of the team's best shooters. He can draw a significant amount of gravity, and that, my friends, can only serve to open up the floor for whoever is driving towards the cup, whether that be Donovan Mitchell, Karis LeVert, Ty Jerome, or anybody else. And the crazy thing is, despite the NBA masses knowing that Garland is a highly respectable 3-point marksman, he is mostly being left alone. Don't get me wrong, some of this is definitely due to Atkinson scheming up ways to generate open looks for his players, but opposing defenses are also giving him more space on the perimeter than you'd initially think. I mean, with what we've seen from him over the years, you'd think that defenses would make sure to keep an eye on him when he is roaming around the 3-point line without the ball in his hands. Instead, 4.1 of his total attempts have been considered what the NBA deems wide open. And for those of you who are blissfully unaware, that means that he is often being given 6+ feet on these shots, and he is knocking them down at a scorching percentage of 54.5%. I just don't get it. But I can tell you what, the longer this goes on, the longer he will continue to make defenses pay. Number 3, 2.74. Darius Garland currently holds a 2.74 assist to turnover ratio through 8 games this season. And I don't have to tell you why that's significant or the importance of it, considering Darius Garland's widely acknowledged issues with taking care of the basketball at times. A point guard's varied duties by nature render them more susceptible to high turnover numbers, considering the fact that they typically are tasked with handling the rock more than other positions. Garland is no different in that regard, but last season was not kind to him in this category. He would finish the 2023-24 campaign averaging the league's 14th most turnovers per game and just seemed to have trouble holding onto the ball and with decision making at times throughout the year. Pre-All-Star DG was actually giving the ball away 3 times per contest, 12th most in the association. During that same stretch of games, he was dishing out 5.9 assists per game as well. That on its own wouldn't be alarming, but his 1.83 assist to turnover ratio was actually ranked 262nd league-wide. It truly felt as if any given possession in which he was controlling the ball could end in disaster. His post-All-Star break numbers were more encouraging in this category, as he would put up an assist to turnover ratio of 2.45, which ranked 161st, nearly a jump of about 100. He was turning the rock over 2.9 times, but he was handing out 7.2 assists as well. His decision making seemed better, and he wasn't committing nearly as many mental errors out there. DG is dealing out 6.5 assists so far this season and been pretty damn careful with the ball, and if the season magically ended today, that 2.74 assist to turnover ratio would be a career best. He just seems more deliberate with where he wants to go with it, and his handle appears tighter. Here's to hoping he continues his recent stretch of careful, well-orchestrated basketball. Number 4, 1.8. Darius Garland has never been the type of player that generates a high number of foul calls, and as a result, he's never averaged more than 4.7 free throw attempts per game in any of his previous 5 seasons. He ranked 84th league-wide in this category last year, 47th in 2022-23, 59th in 2021-22, 116th in 2020-2021, and 279th in his rookie campaign. Just one season ranked in the top 50, and so far this season he is trending downward in that category, as he is only attempting 1.8 free throw attempts per game, a number that places him at 161st. Now, I've often wondered throughout the years why this might be the case. After all, DG does drive to the rim more often than most. He is averaging 15 drives per game this season, 12th most in the NBA. He ended last season with the 9th most at 15.2. The year before that, he averaged 17, the 5th most, and 17.5 drives per game during his All-Star season. So why isn't he drawing more contact? Why isn't he getting calls? Is he not garnering a lot of contact at the rim? Is he simply not getting the calls? Or is he just frankly not being touched? I think it could be a combination of all of these things, but one thing that may not be taken into account is how often Garland is looking to pass the ball when driving to the rim. This season, Garland is averaging 9 passes per game off of drives. That is tops in the league. That may be the reason why he is only averaging half of free throw attempts on his drives. You heard that right. He can give you the best of both worlds in terms of scoring and facilitation, but he's pass first at heart. He is looking to make plays for others, whether that be a lob at the rim to one of the bigs or a shooter out on the perimeter via a drive and kick. Something else that impacts this is the type of shots he is electing to take in general. We've already discussed that DG the PG is attempting a career high 7.3 triples per contest. That makes up nearly half of his overall field goal attempts. He quite literally has attempted more shots from 24 plus feet than any other area on the court. He's attempted 58 shots from 24 plus feet compared to 35 from 8 feet or less from the rim. His in-between game is also a bit underutilized as of now, as he's only attempting 18 total shots for the mid-range area today. You are way more prone to draw contact closer to the rim while trying to finish than you would be from beyond the arc. That said, I think we can all admit that we like to see him get a little bit more contact at the rim at times and look to force the issue. The good news is that he has managed to knock down every last one of his attempts, so at least he's been efficient in this area. And last but not least, number 5, 3. This is on the opposite end of the spectrum. Darius Garland, through his first 8 appearances, is averaging 3 personal fouls per game, the highest average on the team and the 44th most league-wide. Now, with the team winning every single game so far, this might seem like nitpicking, but it's worth keeping an eye on because he has gotten into foul trouble much earlier than you'd like. In fact, if the season were to end today, this would be the highest average to date by a wide margin. It is a real concern, and it's happening whether the calls are valid or not. Some of it is out of his control, but some have definitely been on the 6-year guard. Whether he's out of position, he's overmatched defensively, or has shown poor timing or discipline. Again, it ultimately hasn't seriously hurt the team, but it could in the future in certain matchups. Either way, it's worth keeping an eye on over the course of the season. Go Cavs!